Leaders of two northern European countries want to prevent more Russian aggression, specifically targeting their nations.
Government officials in Sweden and Finland are taking the initial official steps to join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, also known as NATO.
Joining us now live is Dr. David Dorondo, a history professor at Western Carolina University. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
You've done work with NATO. What's the significance of this move, accepting Sweden and Finland, and just from a geographical standpoint as well?
Both Finland and Sweden will bring an enormous accretion of strength to NATO, militarily and strategically. Finland has a border with Russia of 1,300 kilometers. That's about 800 miles. So it will vastly extend NATO's frontier with Russia and thus complicate, to a significant degree, Russian strategic calculus. In addition, both Finland and Sweden have very competent, very highly professional military forces as well. Those forces have worked with NATO very closely for many years now, and both countries have been members of the European Union since 1995. Historically, of course, it's a very major change for both countries.
Well, and Russia has been pretty vocal about their response, to trying to sway them to not join. Why is it so important for Russia for both of these countries to not join? What does it mean for Russia?
Well, it's important for Russia because, as I said a moment ago, it vastly complicates Russian strategic thinking. The addition of Finland will expand the necessity for Russia to make sure that Russian strategic and other forces are now having to take account of that long extended border, a border which now goes all the way to the Arctic Sea. At the moment, Russia does not have the military capability at a conventional level to prevent either Finland or Sweden from joining NATO. One certainly presumes there's going to be some kind of Russian reaction, certainly politically, perhaps in the form of hybrid warfare, cyber attacks on energy grids and pipelines and that sort of thing. But Finland particularly has an extraordinarily good capability in counter-hybrid warfare.
Dr. Dorondo, you actually just wrapped up teaching a course at Western Carolina titled Russia and the West, and you've studied Russia's history extensively. What is happening right now is kind of patterns, the past thinking of that nation. Are you surprised at where we are right now in terms of just how long this particular conflict has lingered? We're in month 3 right now.
Yes, indeed. It's become a commonplace to say that the Western countries, including the United States, all of the NATO countries, all of the EU countries, underestimated Ukraine's willingness to fight and ability to fight. It is certainly the case that Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, underestimated Ukraine's will to resist as well. It should be remembered that Ukrainian forces have trained themselves extensively with NATO since 2014, the last invasion of Ukraine by Russia. So part of that capability, which the Ukrainian forces are currently exhibiting, derives not only from their own combat experience since 2014. Remember that Ukraine's been at war with Russia since 2014, but also from NATO military training since 2014 as well. And of course, President Putin abuses the historical legacy of the connection between the two countries for his own political purposes as well.
Well, and I want to talk about the connection with all the countries in Europe. You've spent a number of years studying Germany and a lot of these other European countries. Let's take a look, kind of a broader scope here. Of course, most of the focus is on Russia and Ukraine for good reason there. But as we look at the other neighboring countries, Germany in particular, one we're not hearing a lot about with all this going on, how is the relationship changed? We got pipelines that are being shut down, natural gas being turned off. We've got, grain and other exports that are going to be closing off. What are the relationship happening around these other countries?
As regards Germany specifically, it was a feature of German foreign policy for the last 20 years, certainly, and indeed in some respects it goes back to before the end of the Cold War, that close economic cooperation between Europe and Germany specifically on the one hand and Russia on the other would tie Russia so closely to the European economic world, and that there would be a mutual benefit, and that those mutual benefits would be such that Russia would not, as it were, want to kill the golden goose. That is to say, Europeans buying Russian exports, particularly of hydrocarbons, oil and natural gas, and refined petroleum products. This was a cardinal feature of German foreign policy for many decades, and it was a huge strategic mistake on Germany's part, and indeed on the part of some other European countries as well, to allow themselves to become so heavily dependent on Russian energy exports particularly. And now the European Union, including Germany, are attempting to reduce their dependency on Russian hydrocarbon exports as rapidly as possible. Oil particularly, coal particularly. It's a little bit more difficult for natural gas, given the very large dependency of Western Europe on Russian natural gas exports, but that's moving ahead as well.
Dr. Dorondo, I know we don't have crystal balls here, but how do you see this conflict ending? Of course, it's not going as the Russians thought it would originally on day one, day two of the invasion.
We're now on day 82 of the invasion. It is, by all accounts, the case that the Russian government expected a quick victory and the installation of a puppet regime in Ukraine. We are, all of us now, very conversant with the fact that the Ukrainians were successful in driving Russian forces out of northern and northeastern Ukraine, and now in and around the city of Kharkiv. The fighting is now raging, of course, in the Donbass, in the southeastern part of the country. The Secretary General of NATO said yesterday, at the conclusion of a foreign ministers meeting, that in his view, and I think this is a view that's widely shared, Ukraine has now the possibility militarily to win this conflict. I hope that will be the case. I hope it will not be the case that Ukraine will have to come to a diplomatic solution where huge parts of Ukraine are ceded to Russia. Of course, Vladimir Putin will call anything a victory eventually at some point, presumably, but I hope it will not be the case that that Ukraine is going to be truncated in terms of territory.
And we certainly hope the days are numbered and the lives lost will cease as quickly as possible. Dr.
Indeed,
David
yes.
Dorondo, Associate Professor of History at Western Carolina University. Thanks for your time, your research all these years, your time with NATO, and thanks for helping us understand sort of the relationships going on over in Europe. We appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for the opportunity.